This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Good morning, Rabbi Glatstein. Parshas Acharei. So obviously, when you think of Parshas Acharei, we think of the following subject. In Parak Yud Zayim, Pasuk Yud Gimel, the Pasuk says, "Ve'ishish mibnei Yisrael." Any man from the Jewish people, min hager hagar b'soicham, or from the converts that live among them, asher yatzud seid chaya, that would like to trap a wild animal, a yoif, or a bird, asher yeyachel, that can be eaten, v'shafach es damai, and you will spill its blood, v'chisahu ba'afar. You have to cover it in dust. So we have over here, if somebody wants to trap a wild animal, and that gets us on the subject, is it permitted to trap wild animals? Is one allowed to go hunting? So for today's shiur, I would like to ask everyone to get your hunting gear ready, put on your camouflage clothing, get your boots, please become a member of the NRA, and get yourself together for a very important hunting trip. And let me just preface my words by saying, in no way today am I discouraging anyone from planning hunting trips. That is not my kavana. I'm all for planning hunting trips. Whether in reality you could go hunting, that is a different story entirely. So let's begin with the most well-known shuvah on the subject, the Noda B'Yehuda. It's known that the Noda B'Yehuda's eggs, the Noda B'Yehuda held that the Shiurim shrunk, and therefore the Shiurim had to be doubled. And interesting, the Noda B'Yehuda was really taller than anybody else in his generation, and his finger sizes were double the size of anybody else. The Noda B'Yehuda was an extremely tall person. He was Mishichma L'Mala Gavaya Me'al Kol Ha'am, and he received the following letter from somebody who he says he doesn't know who it is, with a very interesting name. His name is Gumfricht Openam Yatz Yotzadi, and here's the following shaila. This individual received a very large Yerusha, and in this Yerusha he had Kfarim, the Ya'arais, and he had a very large estate. And in this estate, in the Ya'arais, Tirmois Kol Chai Seyar, there were all kinds of wild animals who were frolicking there. And the question is whether Gumfricht was allowed to go with his kanes reifa, with his burning tube, in other words, with his gun, to kill animals, for sport, for fun, as a way of recreation. Is it permitted to go hunting? May a Jew go hunting? So you say, what could possibly be the issue with going hunting? Well, is it Tsar Balei Chayim? It probably does not feel good to have a bullet placed in the animal. Is it considered Bal Tashchas? Here you're destroying the animal. The animal could have been put to good use, and now you're just killing the animal. Well, we know, for starters, the Gemara tells us many times, there's a mitzvah of prika, which means if you see a laden animal, you have a mitzvah to help unload the animal, to relieve the pressure on the animal's back. Why? The Gemara says we learn from here, Tsar Balei Chayim Da'iraisa. Right? That's the Gemara Bava Metzia seems to say the makar of Tsar Balei Chayim is the mitzvah of prika. Chassam Sofer writes in his Hagois, the source of Tsar Balei Chayim is V'rachamav Al Kol Masav. I believe the Mar Nevuchim says the source of Tsar Balei Chayim is straight out of the mouth of the donkey himself. Lama Zehi Kisani. Why'd you hit me? He's not only is he a donkey, he's a lamdin. He's a Talmud Chacham donkey. He teaches us a halacha that Tsar Balei Chayim is Dairaisa. However, it's also well known that the Piskei HaTosfos writes, quoted in the Noda B'Yehuda, about 2/3 of the way down the first column, that Tsar Balei Chayim is only usher if you don't stand to gain from the animal. But if you're going to benefit and get hana from the animal, you're allowed to inflict pain on the animal. Animals were given for human usage. Taka, those who are against using animals, that's because maybe they feel they're not on a higher madrega than an animal. But those who believe in the prominence of Adam, that Adam is a higher form of matter, man is allowed to make use of animals for all of one's needs. So the question is one allowed to go hunting? So the Noda B'Yehuda begins with the tshuva in the Chumash Hadeshen. If you look on the top left-hand side, He says, Ein lanu laharach bazeh. The Mahari is Rav Isserlin, who's the Baal Chumas Hadashen, in Siman Kofei. Now, there's one interesting thing about the Mahari, Rav Isserlin, and that is, it is well known, the Rav Isserlin, Chumas Hadashen, made up his own shilas. Nobody asked him these questions. In the Shalas Yeshuvas, Chumas Hadashen, he made up the question and he gave the answer. By the way, I like to do that sometimes, you know. I have a Shiur on Shabbos, the best shilah of the week, right? First of all, the advantages of doing that is you only need to answer the questions you know the answer to. If you don't know the answer, it was never asked, right? But anyway, the Chumas Hadashen deals with this question: is one allowed to go hunting? He says, "Kol davar sheyesh bait soyrech leha adam las bei mishum sar balei chayim." Anytime a person stands to gain, there is no isur sar balei chayim. And then the Rabbi Glatstein says a very big chiddush that not everybody agrees with. You know when it's Tsar Balei Chayim? If you cause the animal pain and the animal's alive, Tsar Balei Chayim. There's no din of Tsar Balei Mesim. If you're going to kill the animal's dead, then there's no problem of causing the animal pain.
But until you kill it, it's alive.
So the chiddush of the Chumas Hadashen is, it's that it would writhe in pain. But if you're relieving it of its pain very swiftly, in other words, if you're not leaving it in that condition, it sounds like it's permitted. The words he says is, Avalahamis, Behemois, V'chayis, V'chol Mina Balei Chayim, Lesvei Mishum Sar Balei Chayim. Apparently he understands the Isser is to leave them alive in a state of pain. But even if momentarily you cause them pain, the Isser is not causing pain to the nerve endings of an animal. The Isser is to leave the animal in that condition. Okay. And therefore, says Rabbi Yehuda about on the 8th line, V'imkein ein benidain she'elasai mishum tsar balei chayim. Hunting would not be a problem. Why not? Because you're shooting the animal, you're killing the animal, you're not leaving the animal in that condition. What about Baal Tashchis? Baal Tashchis, says Rabbi Yehuda. What use is the animal having? What does Baal Tashchis mean? Baal Tashchis means you have something that's useful and you're ruining it, you're removing it from its state of usability. You tell me, you have a mink running around in the forest. What is it being used for? What's the benefit of this raccoon while it's frolicking? Meanwhile, if you kill it, your wife could wear it, you could put it on your head, you could wear a strommel, you could wear a borsalino, you could wear one of those Russian hats that pull over. You could a lot of things you could do with fur. You can now... These people come into shul wearing slippers with fur inside. I don't know, they're not embarrassed. But there are a lot of things you could do with fur. So why would it be Baal Tashchis to kill the animal? What benefit is it serving mankind frolicking in the forest? Just the opposite. You could make the case, maybe it's Baal Tashchis if you don't kill the animal. Right now the animal has absolutely no purpose. And by killing it, you're using the animal. Says in Rabbi Yehuda, V'imkein hani chai sayar. We're about 6 lines from the end in the first paragraph on top left-hand side. Kozman shehin b'chayim. Ein mem shum hanola adam. They are not benefiting man in any way. Rak ikar hana b'moisan b'oiroisehen uvevisaram. The main benefit that you gain from these animals is their hide and their flesh. So why would it be usher to kill because of Sar Balei Chayim? Spider?
Yeah, with David. He hit him because he thought he was going to a spider. Right? He hit him with some sharp.
So you're saying that every living thing has a benefit. True, but I think most people would agree. The main benefit of a mink is not its role in the ecosystem, you know? The main is the fur, is what you could get for it. Okay, so says in Rabbi Yehuda, maybe, granted, there's no Tsar Balei Chayim. Granted, there's no Baal Tashchis. But there are other issues with it. He says in Rabbi Yehuda, let's go out into the world and see exactly which tzaddikim all time have had a profession of being hunters. Could you think of any particular Gedolei Yisrael or Tzaddikei Olam who did hunting for a living? Says in Rabbi Yehuda, Lo yimatzinu ish rak b'Nimrod u'be'esav. The only 2 tzaddikim we could think of are Nimrod and Esav. These are the only guys who are hunting. Ve'ein zeh darkei b'nei Avraham, Yitzchak, v'Yaakov. This is just not Jewish tradition. It's not an occupation for a nice Jewish boy. An accountant, yes. But a hunter, maybe not. He says, upuk chazi. The interesting minhag Yisrael is, if you see somebody wearing a new suit, so it's brought down in the Ramah, in Archaim Soif Siman Reish Chaf Gimel, what do you tell the guy? Right? You should wear it gesund heit, or you say the following words: Tivala u'techadesh. What? Tivala u'techadesh. Wear it out. Wear it until it's threadbare. Right? In other words, the way of saying, right? Wear it gesund heit. But says the Ramah, you don't say wear gesund heit. You don't say tivala u'techadesh if someone's wearing a leather jacket or someone's wearing leather shoes. You know why? Says Ramah, because v'racham aval kol masav. Don't wish somebody wear it well. The poor animal had to be strangulated or slaughtered so that you could wear this garment. So we're not going to wish somebody tevala techadesh on a garment made of hide. Why, says Ramah? Because v'racham aval kol masav. So that l'chara is a reason why a person shouldn't go hunting. But says another view that's a very weak reason. Because the truth is the Ramah himself falls off of it. The Ramah says, you could say Tevala Techadesh. But then says Noda Yehuda, that's only because you don't need to kill an animal to get fur from the animal, or to get hide from the animal. Many of the animals could have been killed naturally. Many of them may have dropped dead. Many of them, you could make use of their products without them dying. A snake, you don't kill the snake to make a belt. The snake sheds its skin. So the reasoning of the Ramah, it's not that the Ramah feels that it's not cruel to kill an animal. It's that it's possible to wear these things and to make these products without killing an animal. Says the Noda Yehuda, Ve'ech yamis ish Yisraeli biyadayim balei chayim b'li shum tzarech. How could a Jewish person, with his own two hands, kill a living being for no purpose? Rak ligmar chemdas zmanoi lesasik v'tzeda, just to waste away his time in sport and recreation. How could a Jewish person do that? How could a Jewish person bring himself just to kill a living thing? Why? Well, what else am I supposed to do in my leisure time? I mean, what do you want me to do? Play checkers? This is the only thing that you could do. Baseball? Yeah. The Mets they won't be good, and then the Yankees aren't. So what are we going to do, right? So what am I supposed to do? You'll say, I'm relieving mankind of the dangers of wild animals. I mean, we have to get rid of these things. Lions, tigers, bears, wolves. I'm protecting mankind. I have to get rid of these nuisances, these dangerous creatures. Like Chazal say about a wolf and a lion, the Gemara in Sanhedrin Daf Beis, Kol ha'koidem lahargan zacha. So maybe it's a mitzvah to kill these wild animals. Says Nadir, what are you talking about? Maybe if you were walking down Main Street and you saw a wild hyena, so taka, or you're walking down Main Street and you saw, I can't believe there's a rhinoceros in the middle of the road. So, okay, I understand, you're going to take out a gun and you're going to shoot it. And it's a taka mitzvah. You're telling me you're going to go to the wild jungles of Zimbabwe to kill wild animals to save mankind? Nobody lives there. What are you going over there for? I mean, that's crazy. You're not saving anybody. Leave these animals alone, and you're putting yourself in danger going out there in the first place. He says the what? I don't know, maybe not. This has no connection to our subject. The Gemara in Sanhedrin that says you're allowed to kill an animal, that's only talking about where they come to you. They knock on your door. So if you have a wild rhinoceros in your house, it's a mitzvah to kill them. But now you're traveling hundreds of miles away right? You're in their house. Nobody invited you. You're an unwanted guest. Okay. So the first reasoning of the Noda Yehuda says,
going to the wood, that means there's a reason for it.
Right.
How could it be a mitzvah to destroy it?
No, but he's asking, the Gemara says, these wild animals.
So because
Right, that's what he's saying, exactly. In other words, if they're coming after you, you got to protect yourself and the rest of mankind, but Avalirdoif Achareim, to go into their homes, you're going, what are you going to go? You're going to go to the wild jungle. They're not coming into your home. They have no way to get there. If you see that 100 wild animals chartered a plane right? And they're about to land in JFK, then taka, you should shoot down the plane. But now they're in their country. Right? They're in their country. You're going to go to their country to shoot them down. Ein ka mitzvah. All you're doing is rak lirdoif achar ta'avas libai. You're just running out after your heart's desires. Va'atzas hanidma ketivya. It's just sport. It's just recreation. It's just recreation. Now it's one thing. Now, if you're a furrier, if that's what you do for a living, if that's your parnasa, so there's a klal that somebody who needs to make money is entitled to shoot an animal and to kill an animal and to make the mink and to make the fur coat and to make the shoes and to make the jacket. Is it achzarius? No, it's not an achzarius. If it was, are you allowed to be a shoichet? Did anybody say, you can't be a shoichet, it's cruelty, animal cruelty? No, that's my job. That's what I do for a living. It says in Rabbi Yehuda, Mishu ish hatzach lezel parnasasai mitzeda kazu bezel shayach achzarius. This is not shayach cruelty. We shecht behemos, we shecht chayos, we shecht oifos. We kill fish. It doesn't matter whether it's a kosher animal, you're going to eat it, or a tamei animal, you're going to wear it. So it's not an issue of achzarios. But the issue is, for somebody to do it for sport and for recreation, this is not, as they say, a Yiddish occupation. That's the first reason. This is not a halachic reason. It says in Yehuda, Ad kan dibarti mitzad yosher hahanhaga. This is just a matter of proper conduct. Sharoy la'adam laharchim is that a person should distance himself. In other words, we're not saying it's usher. Nobody's going to say it's. The first reason is not that it's absolutely prohibited to hunt. It's just this is not a proper conduct for a Jewish person. However, it says in Yehuda, in his opinion, it's usher to go hunting for the following reason. Is somebody allowed to, attach a tightrope from, they don't have the Twin Towers anymore, from, the top of the Statue of Liberty to the Empire State Building, and, risk their life for fun? Are you allowed to jeopardize your life to have a good time? Of course not. The Torah says, "V'nishmartem oid lenafshei seichem." You're not to put yourself in sakana. Says in Yehuda, anyone who goes hunting, tzrichen lihikanes b'ya'aris. You have to go into the forest. Ulahachnis atzmam b'sakonos gedolos b'makom gedudei chayos. You're putting yourself in the hands, in the jaws of wildlife. Doesn't the Torah say, "V'nishmartem oid lenafshei seichem"? Now, who was the greatest hunter of all time? Who is the most famous hunter of all time? Esav. What did Esav say about himself? Hine anoichi haylech lamos. I'm going to die. Whoa, big chiddush, Esav. So is everybody. What was Esav saying? Hine anoichi haylech lamos. Says in Yehuda, ein mikra yotzim midei pshuta. What Esav was saying is, I'm a hunter. I could go any moment. My job entails risking my life. Very unlikely that I'll live long. So says in Yehuda, we see from the Pshuta Shel Mikra that going hunting is considered a very dangerous occupation. Is somebody allowed to put themselves... Now, this is a very interesting inyan. Is one allowed to put themselves in danger to make parnasa? You are. You're allowed to take a certain degree of risk in order to make money. Why? Because making money is a dangerous thing. It is. The Torah says about the ani, ve'elav hu noiseas nafsha. His life is dependent on his livelihood. Why is somebody's life dependent on their livelihood? Not just because they need money to live, but because making a livelihood is considered in a way, you're going out of your house, you're going out of your safety area, you're going out of your tranquility of your home, and to a certain extent, the Torah allows a person to endanger themselves to make a living, including real sakana, including hunting. It says in Yehuda, Umayata, he says, if a person is poor and they're going hunting to make a living, that the Torah permits. Let's say you have a merchant, a seafarer. In the olden days, people who would travel, on ships and travel hundreds of miles, they're jeopardizing their life. They could be killed by pirates. They could be capsized. They could be the ship could sink. in a storm. So you have to bench goyma. So if you have to bench goyma, that means a miracle happened. If a miracle happened, but ain't soimchen al hanesa, how are you allowed to go in the boat in the first place? The answer is, you know what? To travel for no reason at all, you shouldn't do it. In a makam sakana. But if you need to do it to make a living, that's a different story. But says in Rabbi Yehuda, that lazu Acharei tira. Kamay kol soy Acharei yamim evel yam shekol mashul etzach mechiyasam anasasay ein breira. You ever hear that expression? Ein breira. There's no choice. Avomi she'ein ikar kavanasam mechiyasay. If you're not going hunting for livelihood, but it's umitavas liboy hu haylech, you're just coming to fulfill your desires. Al makam gedudei chayos umachnazaz zakana harei ze oiver al v'nishmartem ma'oid. You're violating, guarding your life. So far it's isur, and it's a sakana. So we have two reasons so far. Number one, Jewish people are not hunters. Esav's a hunter, Nimrod's a hunter. Number two, you're putting yourself in danger. And number three, says the Rabbi Yehuda, you're causing your ledger to be opened. The Gemara says, don't walk by a unsturdy wall. Why? Because Chazal say, because ulai loy nasanes, and even if it is nasanes, menakelim is chuyosav. And it's even if not, it's maskir and avaynosav. In other words, when a person puts himself in danger, God opens up their ledger and starts scrutinizing and analyzing, does this person really deserve to be saved and be protected? And one is not allowed to put themselves in a situation where their repertoire, where their ledger is being analyzed and scrutinized. And therefore, concludes the Rabbi Yehuda, V'lachein hashoymei ali, if you want to listen to me. And he says, the same thing, if it's for parnasa, you're entitled to do something that your ledger may be scrutinized. He says, we say, Chazal ordained a special tefillah. Here, Chazal say like this. It says in Brachos Parak Dal Mishnah Dar, Mispalal tefillah katsara. You say, Hoisha Hashem es amcha, b'chal Parshas ha'ibor. And the Gemara there says, what does it mean, Parshas ha'ibor? Amar Rav Chizma, Amar Ukva. Even when you become angry, and even when people are over on divrei Torah, protect us. So says the Navi, from here we see that when a person goes v'makam sakana, they're being over al divrei Torah. Therefore, if you need to do it for a livelihood, you're allowed to do it. But to do so just because you're doing it for leisure, you have no right to offer a tefillah, say, Hashem, I'm risking my life, protect me. Therefore, advises Rabbi Yehuda, Hashoymei ali, if you want to listen to me, Yishkoin betach hashgate v'sha'anan. Dwell tranquil and secure. Where? Bebeisai. Stay home. Like my grandfather Zogazontan likes to say, Acharei. Yoshrei beisecha. Who's lucky? Who's fortunate? Those who sit at home. That's the safest place to be. That's the best place to be. V'lo ya'abed zmanoi b'dvarim ke'ela. Don't waste your time with these type of things. But again, the Yehuda basically has three problems. Number one, it's not a Jewish profession. Number two, you're putting yourself in sakana. And number three, you're causing your ledger to be opened. He doesn't have a problem with Sar Balei Chayim, and he doesn't have a problem with Baal Tashchas. Okay? Now, if you're doing it for a living, that's your livelihood, that's how you make money, you're entitled to do it, then it would be permitted. So we have a very interesting tshuva over here. It might be a little difficult to read. Shailas Uchuvos Shemesh Tzedakah of Reb Shamshin Mor Porgo. Reb Shamshin Mor Porgo lived from 1681 to 1740. He was a Bosnian Italian rabbi. You don't have that many of those. You don't have that many Bosnian Italian rabbis. He was a physician. He was a liturgist. He studied in Venice, and then he studied in the only university in the time that was open to Jews, and that is the University of Padua, and he graduated as a doctor of medicine. By the way, there were Achronim who were professors in the University of Padua, Rabbi Yehuda Mintz, and many others. Okay, so in 1704, he published the Sefer Eitz Hadas on Yedaya Bedarsi's Sefer Bechinas Ha'olam. At the end of it, he published a satire on a book called The Kabbalists, and he was the Rabbanim were not happy with that sefer that he published.
What was it called?
The name of the sefer was The Kabbalists. The Kabbalists. Okay, B'resume, in the sefer Pachad Yitzchak, Rav Yitzchak Lamprunti, the Reb Shamshin Morporgo was one of the people who gave him a haskama, and Reb Shamshin Morporgo was one of the main loichamim on the Ramchal. Together with Rav Moshe Chagiz, Reb Shamshin Morporgo was not a defender, anything but that, of the Ramchal. In the year 1730, there was a terrible epidemic, and Reb Shamshin Morporgo was a very successful physician, and he was able to rescue and save a lot of people. Okay, be it as it may, he has a tshuva on hunting, and he wants to know: are you allowed to hunt with kaneh chalol bepsila shel evar? So let's see if you can figure out what that is. It's on the second wide line after the narrow line. Bekaneh chalol bepsila shel evar. You have a hollow tube and you have a lead wick. Yeah, some kind of gun, a musket. So the question is, are you allowed to go hunting? No, it's all the same. But, once they have guns, nobody's using a bow and arrow anymore.
Prevalent, even in the 1600s.
Yeah.
People hunt this today with arrows. They're very sophisticated.
But that's those.
That's a sport.
Okay, there's no nafkamina. That's yeah, it wouldn't matter what kind of instrument was used. He says like this. In his opinion, first of all, it's an Isra about Tashchis. It's an Isra about Tashchis. And then he says as follows. He says, Ro'isi l'rav ba'al avodas hagarshuni sheheshiv de'ein sar ba'alechem el ko'od she'habehima b'chayim chiyusa dumya de'chama roivetz tachas mas. Remember we said the Shita of Noid Yehuda, quoting Rav Yisraelin, is that it's only tsar ba'alechem if the animal is alive, not if the animal is dead. So, some of us were incredulous. Why would it matter if the animal is alive or dead? Well, the source of tsar ba'alechem is what? Prika, unloading the animal. That's only a living animal. The source of tsar ba'alechem is only when it's alive. But says Rav Shamshin Porgo, fine. You want to say there's no Isser Torah if the animal dies? Maybe I'll grant you that. But it would still be Asur Midrabanan. And it's only mutter if it serves l'tayeles of a person. But if it doesn't serve any tayeles, stam, it's achazarias. We know the famous story with Rebbe. Rebbe was walking down the street, and an animal, a cow, came running to Rebbe and went under Rebbe's cloak. And Rebbe said, Zil, l'kach noitzarta, get out of here, go lost. You have to be shechted, that's what you were created for. And the Gemara, I believe in Kesubah, says, Rebbe suffered Yisurim for 13 years because he was cruel to the animal. Right? He suffered 13 years. So what do we see from here? That even though Taka Rebbe was right, because the Gemara says, Roiv behemoth l'shchita, and you're allowed to be shoichet, and it's a mitzvah to do shchita. But nevertheless, the midah of achzarius is very frowned upon, and mi lanu gado me Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, who could be greater than the Tana Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, and even he was not protected from this cruel expression. So therefore, Rav Shamshin Porgo does not recommend going hunting. By the way, the Ramah talks about it explicitly. The Ramah in Archaim Siman Shin Tez Zayin says, Tzad Tzvi Yashan, if somebody traps a sleeping deer, a sumo or a blind deer, chayiv, he's chayiv. Even though, what do you mean? The deer doesn't need to be trapped, it's sleeping. No, you're still chayiv, on Shabbos. Chiger oy choyla oy zaken pater. Somebody who incites a dog against a wild animal on Shabbos, it's tzeda. Says Rama, v'yesh oimrim, even during the week you're not to trap the animal. Why? It's moishav leitzim. It's moishav leitzim. What does that mean, it's moishav leitzim? How's it moishav leitzim? Because you're doing something for no purpose for mankind. It's considered just a sport. It's considered just recreation with no personal value. Nothing is gained, nothing is benefited. Now, who does the Rama quote? The Arzarua. The Arzarua is Rabbi Yitzchak Mivina. The Arzarua, by the way, was the Rebbe of the Marami Rothenburg. Look what the Arzarua writes, and really a frightening thing. He brings down a tradition. The Arzarua brings down a tradition. Oimer ani ha-mechaber, on the third line. Kol mi shetzad chayos beklavim ke'en sha'akam oisim. Anyone who goes hunting with dogs the way the Goyim do, lo yireh besimchas levyasan, will not partake of the Suda of the Levyasan la'asalavai. What? You want to know without dogs? He doesn't say. So I don't know. They're going to outsource the job. I don't know. Look at this, because it says, how do we know this? Because we say in the first parak of Avodah Zarah, uvedarach chatam lo yamad, bekingyon shalahem, in their hunting, u'perish Rashi, kingyon seidas chayis aidei klavim. And he says, the behemoth and the levyasan are knignon shal tzadikim la'asalavai, shekal shalo ra knigi shal umas anvan mazeh, zoichel roisam la'asalavai. So you have to pick you have a choice. Either you do hunting la'asalavai with levyasan and the behemoths, or you do hunting in this world. It's a frightening thing. It sounds like somebody who goes hunting now, he loses his opportunity later in the future. And this is also brought in the Pachad Yitzchak of Rabbi Yitzchak Lamprunti. Okay. So here's the question. So in my neck of the woods, in the 5 towns, there's a lot of these swamps everywhere. It's overrated. 5 towns. It's all swampland. In the summer, you could barely go outside.
Kew Garden Hills used to be swampland.
Yeah. So halavai, we should reach the Madrega of Kew Garden Hills. Yeah. So they have these companies. They have mosquito spraying companies. So most people have no choice. They have to spray their yards for mosquitoes, right? You have no choice. Are you allowed to kill mosquitoes, bugs, insects, gnats? You have annoying creatures. Are you allowed to kill them? After all, we just said 3 reasons not to go hunting. Number 1, who went hunting? Esav and Nimrod. Number 2, you're putting yourself in danger. Number 3, you're causing your ledger to be open. But Rav Shamshon Morporgo did say it's achzarious to kill an animal with your own hands. Even the Noid Yehuda says.
But they're coming to attack you.
He says, Eich yomis ish Yisraeli biyadayim balechayim b'li shum tzairach.
There is a tzorach, because they're going to bite you.
What about mice? What about mice? What about rats? What about raccoons? You ever see people, they have a mouse in the house, they put on their army gear, they put on goggles, they take out their rifle, they hide behind the couch, they stick up their head and bam, they shoot the mouse 500 times.
It's our Ba'al for the human being. If the women and the children, they get all upset and aggravated, they don't want to...
No, women are not scared of mice. No, I don't think so. Women are not scared of mice.
Yeah.
Just because they stand up on the table doesn't mean they're scared. So says Rav Moshe, Hine b'dvar harigas dvarim ha'mu'usim u'memasim es ha'oichem. What about disgusting creatures that ruin food? Zvuvim, flies, yitushin, gnats, paroshin, shemetzarnas ha'adam, leko shem isser melhargam. There's no isser to kill them. V'chein ha'achbar ha'avsin ha'oichlem. V'kol shekin kishenem some tinoikos. Certainly if there are kids around, you gotta kill. There are even adults that are very scared of them.
When we go and we leave that area.
Right, they moved into our house.
No,
right.
they moved into our house. We are living now.
Oh, you mean if you go outside, now you're on their territory?
Yes.
So why are you allowed to kill them? Says Rav Moshe, Ki kol davar shu l'tzarech ha'adam. Any human need. You don't need to go hunting. It's not a human need to go hunting. But anyway, which is a human need, I would like to sit outside without you removing my blood. Okay? So you go get it. There's no way the mosquito is going to sit on you without slurping from you like a Slurpee. So he's going to put in his straw, which is actually quite long, and so I'm allowed to kill you. It's l'tzarech adam. What's the proof? The proof is shchita. Hitira hatar shchita You're allowed to do shchita not only for Jews. I'm allowed to do shchita to feed a guy. What do you mean? I'm not eating it. L'tzoyrech adam, it is permitted to kill an animal. Okay? But we're going to come back to this. Now listen to this. On Shabbos? Shabbos is different. Thank you. Good answer. Marv Rabbi Sai, what about fishing? What about fishing? Are you allowed to go fishing? So let's see whether the three reasons of the Noid Yehuda apply. The first reason is, who was a hunter? Esav and Nimrod. But you can't say, well, being a fisherman, going fishing is not a Jewish profession. We don't find any notorious villains who are fishermen. What about the second reason, Rabbi said? The second reason was, you're putting yourself in sakana. Is it a sakana to go fishing? I guess it depends where you go fishing. What? Boredom. I guess it depends where you go. If you're going fishing on, in the Colorado Rapids, or in the Niagara River, that might be a little bit dangerous. If you're going fishing on the boardwalk, it's probably not dangerous, right? What about there's another... Marv Rabosai, there's another reason Reb Shanshin Mipargo mentioned why he doesn't believe it's a good idea to go hunting. And then he says, V'oid hoichachti toichachas magula b'yava rabba u'ka'asira ni'ima ala vadnu hazman yakar shabemetzias. He says, what about the fact that it's a waste of time, the most valuable commodity? What are you doing? B'havle ha'olam b'umano she'eno shalanu v'loinit lana avino rishain. Basically, you're whittling away your time for absolutely no reason. Now, some people, no, that's by hunting. You're just wasting time. So that reason that he says by hunting applies by... Now, if there are some people who will say, yeah, it depends. Certain teams that you root for are mamish bittles. No, you're not going to get anything out of it ever, right? It doesn't matter who they sign. They just have a malach that's appointed over that team. That's a lousy malach. Their mazel is bad. They will never win. It's not shayach. It's not even possible. So, be it as it may, but somebody would say, fishing, my life is so stressful, and I'm so nervous that the only thing that could calm me down is to go on a fishing boat and to feel the mist on my face. There is nothing more relaxing than that. So Rabbi say, I am not here to persuade anyone not to make plans to go hunting and not to make plans to go fishing. You should definitely make plans to go hunting. And when you actually go, you should learn the tshuva of the Noid Yehuda, and then you realize that you can actually hunt. And then, what about going fishing? So, I'm not offering my opinion. I'm going to read to you a tshuva of the Mishnah Halachos, Rabbi Menashe Klein. Now, if you're a fisherman, and you're fishing because you're catching tuna fish to be able to sell, so it's your parnasa, there's no problem. Now, but here's the problem with going fishing. The Noid Yehuda said that maybe it would be us to go hunting because of Tzar Bali Chaim. He said, no, there's no problem because the animals are dying. But when you catch a fish, if you're catching the fish to eat, taka, the animal's dying. But if you're catching the fish for fun, you're going to throw the fish back into the water. So the fish is not dying. So think about what you're doing to the fish. You're extracting the fish from the water, so it's suffering and it's choking. Then you're jamming a metal thing in its jaw. Why? Because you want to have fun. And then what are you doing to the fish? You're throwing it back into the water. Then the fish remains alive. Then it would come out, fishing is mamish and isser, much worse than hunting. Hunting, the animal's dying. So that's mutter me'ikar adin. Fishing... Yeah, but the only reason it's not Sar B'Lechaim to go hunting is because you're killing the animal. But fish, you're not killing the fish. The fish remain alive. That's Takat Sar B'Lechaim. That's the Havamina, the Noid Yehuda. Noid Yehuda wanted to aser hunting me'ikar adin because Sar B'Lechaim, and he said, no, it's mutter because the animal's being killed. But over here, the fish remains alive. Says the Mishnah Halachos, he says, Fi ani az daiti, number 8, and after they catch them, they throw them back, It's asur mishum tzar balei chayim b'shas tzeda shemitzayer hadog b'chiko shaloi l'tzarch. According to Mishnah Halachos, it is asur to go fishing for fun. Now, if you're going fishing, you're going to eat the fish because you feel that a raw fish in polluted water is so delicious, right? You feel that the mercury-infested fish, you feel that this fish that tastes like seaweed is very delicious, and you're going to go out into the Hudson River, which, most living things cannot survive there even 10 minutes from the pollution, and you're going to ingest that, no problem, kol hakavod. Eat the fish, gesund to hate. But if you're going to throw it back into the water, it's mamish tzar balei chayim. Yes. So I am not an expert in the feeling sensations of the nerve endings of fish. I don't know. If you're going to tell me that fish don't feel, I can't argue on you. I don't know. No. Well, I mean, you're right, they survive. But I don't think it feels good when. No, they definitely do have pain.
I'm sure they do.
Yeah, I think they do have pain. But you want to say it doesn't hurt them as much as it hurts a cow? Probably not. But I can't imagine that it feels good to have a rusty nail thrust through your jaw. I just can't imagine that feels good. So you'll say, but I'm nene from it. I'm getting a benefit from it. So says the Rav Menashe Klein, you're not benefiting from torturing the fish. That's not a hana. What hana is there in torturing the fish? Now, by the way, back to the bugs, back to the insects, back to the rodents that a person wants to kill to get rid of. So Rav Moshe has a very interesting opinion on this. Even though it's mutter, you're allowed to kill a mosquito, you're allowed to kill a mouse, you're allowed to kill something that enters your home and you're trying to get rid of it. Says Rav Moshe, Im efsher toiv shelo yahargim biyadav mamish. It's better not to kill them with your own hands. Ela al yidei hanachas davar hahargam. It's better to do it al yidei grama. Meaning, you have a choice. You have a mouse, so you could put on your goggles and get a pistol and hide behind the thing and shoot it. That's better not to do that. Better to put a mouse trap, and it should be al yidei grama. Why? Why is it better to do that? Because we know, the Gemara says in Sanhedrin, if you have an ir hanidachas, that the halacha requires us to kill out the city. So the pasuk says, "V'nasan lecha rachamim v'richamcha." Hashem has to give you a special promise that He'll give you the midah of mercy. Why does Hashem have to give us a midah of mercy? Because we're afraid that if you kill somebody, even though it's authorized, it will engender in you a terrible midah of cruelty. So what do we see from here? That even when you're allowed to kill somebody, it's better not to do it because it's dangerous. So by Ir Hanidachas, Hashem promises, don't worry, you won't become an achzar. But there's no promise that if you have a mouse in your house and you take a hammer and you smash it over the head, you're going to remain a rachaman. And therefore, says Rav Moshe, it's better not to do it with your own hands. Now, shchita, which is a mitzvah, it's a mitzvah of achilas chulin, so we don't even need the promise of verichamcha. However, if you have a nuisance in your hand, it's better not to do it with your own hands. Says Rav Moshe L'chein Tov Yoser Shaloi Larog Biyadayim Ela Al Yidei Hanochas Darvar HaHorgam V'Chadayma. Says Rav Moshe. The Gemara says in Shabbos that Rav Nachman told his daughter, kill the louse, and I want to hear it screaming in pain. So that sounds like you're allowed to kill it biyadayim. That's because you can't exactly set a trap for a mosquito. What are you going to do? You're going to lie there like this, and you're going to put, honey on your thing, and then you're going to put a rock on the ceiling that's triggered, that when the mosquito lands on you, a rock's going to fall on your... It ain't going to work. It's not. There's no way to set a trap for little insects. Take a little insect that's bothering you, you could kill it.
Well, they do have these electronic traps that zap them.
Yeah, but but when they're on you, right, you can't exactly put a shocker on your body that's going to shock. Not during the week. In other words, if you have a mouse, you shouldn't walk around with a BB gun shooting the mouse. Try to set a mouse trap. But a little insect that's annoying, you're allowed to kill with your own hands. Now Rav Moshe says something interesting. A what? You want to know if you have a choice between traps, something that will kill it instantly.
Metal trap.
It's better to get a glue guard.
Really?
Yeah.
That's torture.
Yeah, but at least you didn't do it with your own hands. It's only a grama. Now, if a choice between a glue board and some other thing that kills it right away, it's better to have a grama that kills it right away than it, writhing in pain on the glue board for, 10 years. Okay. Anyway, says Rav Moshe, I never saw explicitly in any particular sefer that it says it's better not to kill an animal with your own hands. Says Rav Moshe, toivu hisnahikein. In his opinion, that's the better way to go. It's better to avoid killing with your own hands. Even though he has no clear makar for this hanhaga, it's better not to. What about going fishing on Chalamayid? So we already said you can't go fishing, period. No, but there's a way around it. You'll eat it for dinner. The thing is, it's only if legitimately you're going to eat it. Now, if you're going fishing and all you're finding are these little goldfish, and what are you going to do with the goldfish? You're going to put it in your little tank at home. You're not allowed to do that on Chalamayid. It's tzeidah, and it's not a tzarach hamayid. But if you're going fishing, and with the tuna fish, you're going to catch a little fish also, so you're allowed to do it. The whole thing becomes mutter if some of the fish you're going to be able to use and to eat. Okay? Rabbi Glatstein, let me tell you one area of lamdos that so it comes out, in no way am I trying to persuade anyone not to schedule a fishing trip. You should definitely schedule a fishing trip. You should even go out on a boat. You should just not actually catch the fish. Because if you catch the fish, you might violate Tzar Baalei Chayim. Now, if you do catch the fish, make sure you eat it. But I have a better thing you could do. You could rent a boat, take it out to the middle of the ocean, take out these sheets, and you could chazer over the tshuva of the Noda B'Yehuda. You could learn that the Noda B'Yehuda says that you shouldn't go hunting to be like Esav, and you shouldn't put yourself in sakana, and you shouldn't have your ledger be opened up. And you could chazer the tshuva of Rabbi Menashe Klein, that catching a fish alive is Tzar Baalei Chayim. And you could chazer over Rabbi Moshe's tshuva, that it's better not to kill animals with your own hand. You should do it al yidei davar acher. And then after you do that, you could come back to your friends in shul, and they'll say, "Nu, how was the fishing trip?" It was unbelievable. It was amazing. Now, if you actually have to catch fish for supper, there is a very interesting halachic dilemma that could come up. And that is, if you set out bait, and some fish come to your bait, and Shimon is going fishing next to you. And the truth is, the fish went to his bait first, and now you're luring the fish that went to Shimon's bait back to you. Is that stealing? Is that what we call... Is that ani hamahapech becharara? What's ani hamahapech becharara? Ani hamahapech becharara is somebody has a certain customer or job or occupation, and you're doing that job or occupation, you're luring money away from him. What are the parameters of that? So there's a very interesting Tosfos in Kedushin on Daf Nun Testament. I'll take a look at number 11. Because the Gemara in Kedushin says on Daf Nun Tes, ani hamahapech becharara uba achar v'natla is a rasha. An ani that's, scrounging around in the garbage, and somebody comes and takes away from him, he's a rasha. Says Tosfos, about 2/3 of the way down on the first column, he says, why is an ani hamahapech becharara rasha? He says, Lama mechazar al zoi shetach b'chaveroi. Why are you going to look for that which your friend was matriach? Yelech v'yistag makam acher. Why are you meddling in his business and his customers? Aval em hois acharora hefker. But if what he's involved in is hefker, in other words, he doesn't have customers, he doesn't have business, he's in a makam hefker, lek iser. Because if I'm not zoicha, someone else is going to find it. Meaning, Tosfos Shita is something which is hefker. There's no halacha of ani hamahapech becharara. L'chayra then, if I'm going fishing, and he's going fishing, and he has fish near him, those fish are what? They're hefker. So for me to lure them away, that's not a problem of ani hamabich b'charara. I'm allowed to lure away merchandise and fish that are in his general domain because it's not an ani hamabich b'charara. It says Tosfos, anytime something is hefker, there's no isser shem la yizka zacha bezois la yimtza achares.
So what about opening two stores, one next to the other? It's also hefker.
Yeah. Pasha Pshat is not always usher to open up another store.
It's very common practice among
What about if things are hefker and he's picking up for himself? Is he allowed to pick up for his friend also?
and
Because
the other one that comes in,
sorry.
if he comes next to him, that's like a violation. It's a big issur. So in a case like that,
You have to know under what circumstances ani hamahaplich b'charara applies. But Tosfos is clearly saying that ani hamahaplich b'charara is if I was matriach in something and you come infringe on my business. But if something was hefker, there's no isser of ani hamahaplich b'charara because if I don't take it, someone else is going to take it. However, there's the shita of the father Rabbeinu Tam. In the next column of Tosfos, look at number 11, the second column. V'oid oimer Rabbeinu Meir aviv shel Rabbeinu Tam. Demairi b'dag meis. It's talking about if you use a dead fish. Shekein derech hadayagim lahasim b'metzudos dag meis. The derech is to put in the trap a dead fish. V'hadagim is asvim sham, the fish gather. There's savav oisei hadag. Meaning if I put out a lure and I cause fish to gather around the lure, the kivan shazeh pirish mitzudasei tchila, since one of them spread out his net first, and by putting out the net, fish gathered there. If his friend spread out a net, have a ki'ilu goizalai. It's as if he stole from him. Get lost, get out of here. I already spread out my lure, I already spread out my worm. Once I spread out the worm and the fish come to my worm, this is like my territory, my property. Go somewhere else, go to a different river, go to a different area. So interesting, if you look in Tosfos seems to say that once fisherman A spread out his net and spread out his lure and fish began to swim to it, what does he call it? It's ki'ilu goizalai. It's like stealing. And therefore, like I told you in the beginning, I don't see anything wrong with planning a fishing trip. I don't see anything wrong taking the boat out to the middle of the ocean. Obviously, you can't actually go fishing for fun. And even if you plan on eating the fish, you have to make sure that nobody spread out his net before you. Because if you're luring fish away from somebody else's lure, that's ke'ein goizel. It's as if you stole. Comes the K'tsois HaChoshen in Siman Reish Ayin Gimel. And the K'tsois HaChoshen argues on Tosfos. And the K'tsois HaChoshen says in his opinion, it's not ke'ein gezela, it's mamish gezela. Why is it mamish gezela? So he says like this. Says the K'tsois HaChoshen a very interesting thing. What's halach if you have a store? Somebody has a store. You go to a guy, and you pay money. And let's say you want to buy a Diet Coke. So you go into the convenience store. You give $1 for the can of soda, and the guy gives you the can of soda. Is it your soda? The answer is no. You have to do a kinyan. Yeah, but I gave money. Money's not a kinyan. How do you do a kinyan? Meshicha. Wait a second. Meshicha doesn't work in someone else's property. I lift it up. I do hagbah. That's a kinyan. Says the K'tsois HaChoshen. In a simta, you're allowed to do meshicha. And even in a Rishus HaYachid, you could do hagbah. You could do hagbah. Well, says the K'tsois HaChoshen, if I put out a lure and I cause the fish to swim up, the fish are magbiyan atzman, and they're coming around the dog hames, that's considered hagbah, and that person who put out the lure made a kinyan. If I lure the fish away, I'm not a ke'ein, a gazlan, I'm a gazlan mamish. That's the chiddush of the K'tsois HaChoshen. This is analogous to kairei la v'hi ba'a. Rabbi say, it's exactly like the case of the elephants. What's the case of an elephant?
Make him move.
How are you koine an elephant? I'm sure many of us, many times in our life, are faced with this great dilemma of how are you koine an elephant, right? So how do you do? So Mashiach doesn't work on an elephant. You can't make a kinyan Mashiach. How do you do a kinyan on an elephant?
Make him step up.
So the Gemara in Kedushin says on Daf Chavav, "Bechavile is myros," a bundle of vines. What does that mean? What you do is you go over to the elephant, and you take the chaviles myros, which are 3 tvachim off the ground, and you lift it up, and the elephant, so to speak, lifts itself up, and by doing so, even though the elephant is only lifting itself up ever so slightly, and by the way, Rabbeinu Meshulam in Tosfos in Kedushin says that chaviles myros are meichel peel, like we say Masechta Shabbos, and the elephant is koifetz, and is magbiya atzim in haaretz, and it eats from it. So we see from here that if you cause an elephant to lift itself up, that's considered hagbah. So too, if you put a fish bait in the water and you cause the fish to swim toward the bait, that's considered hagbah. So says the Ktsois HaChoshen, if fisherman A puts out the bait and it causes the fish to swim up to it, and then somebody lures it away, that's considered gezela. Comes the nesivos, and the nesivos says, no, it's not a good analogy from the case of the kinyan on the elephant. Why? Listen carefully. If you take a pole and you suspend the vines on the pole, and then you go back to hiding in the bush, and then the elephant comes and it raises itself up, is it a kinyan? No. Because you didn't do a maisa at the time of the hagbah of the elephant. You were goyrim the elephant to lift himself up, but he didn't actually lift himself up directly through your act. You set it up. You put the chaviles myros on the pole, and then the elephant came along and lifted himself up. That's not hagbah. Hagbah is when you walk over to the elephant and you go like this, and the elephant lifts himself up and he jumps ever so slightly. That's hagbah. In the case of the fish, how does it work when you lure fish? First you put the dead fish in. Now it's there already. Now the fish swim to it. That's not hagbah. That's your goyrim hagbah. A goyrim of hagbah is not a kinyan. In a chanami, but most of the time, once the first fisherman did an actual hagbah, the second one is not trying to lure it away. It's in a typical case where fish go from one lure to the next. So Rabbi Sai, I have a great idea of an activity you could do. You could rent a boat, and then you could take it out into the middle of the ocean, and obviously you could even bring a fish rod, a rod. You could even lure it away from the first guy, as long as you tell him it's just a joke, because I know it's yours already, based on the chashash of Tosfos and Kedushin on Daf Nun Testament Aleph, and the Shita of the Ktsois HaChoshen, Siman Reish Ayin Gimel. Even though according to the Nesivos, it wouldn't be mamish gezela, but still Tosfos paskins, it's ke'ein gezela. So this is a very good way to occupy yourself when you plan your next non-fishing trip. By the way, I'm not done yet. Where's everyone going? Give me a few more minutes, okay? A few more minutes. Sorry. Okay. Marv Rabosai. Last thing. Why are people so interested in going hunting and fishing? What is this all about? Why do people have so much time on their hands? Well, there's a very important tshuva in Ramosha. This tshuva is in Yardea, Chela Gimel, Siman Ayin Aleph, and Ramosha talks in number 21. By the way, just one last thing. Here's the thing. So you're going to go on the fishing trip. And obviously you're not going to actually fish, but you're going to chazer over the machlokes, ketzois, nesivos, tosfos in kedushin. You have a lot to do. Okay, I get it. But the question is going to come back to shul, and somebody's going to ask you, ben gavla gavra, nu, what'd you catch? So the first thing you're going to say is, the Mishnah Berurah says you're not allowed to talk ben gavla gavra. I can't answer the question. Right? But he says, come on, what are you going to say? I'll tell you after davening. So after davening, everyone's going to stand there. surround you. No, you catch anything? You were there the whole day. What were you doing? Now the truth is, once you chazed over that machlokes k'tzos and asivus, you spent many hours chazing over other machlokes. Are you allowed to lie and say, I caught the biggest tuna you ever saw just to avoid embarrassment? Is it permitted to lie to avoid embarrassment?
That could be the because the guy would want to go fishing.
Are you?
You're going to create him to be over with Tzavra.
He'll probably watch a shiur on Torah anytime, so he'll know not to do it. But the question is, are you allowed to lie to avoid embarrassment? We know you're allowed to lie for shalom bayis. Let's say your wife says, when you went to the Kol Agad Pirka, did you eat the danishes or did you eat the holy tuna fish sandwich? So for shalom bayis, it's permitted to lie. But are you allowed to lie not to be embarrassed? It's Machloikis, Ramban, and Rashi. Where? So it says, when Eliezer met Rivka, Eliezer said, by the way, he gave her the ring, he gave her the jewelry, and then he says, by the way, who are you? So Rashi says, what in the world is he doing? He had bitachon that Hashem was mazman to him the right girl. Then when he's saying over the story to Lavan and Besuel, he said, I asked her who she was, and then I gave her the jewelry. So Rashi says, why did he do that? He didn't want to be caught doing a ridiculous thing, and they're going to mock him, and it's going to, right? They're going to make fun of him. He didn't want to be embarrassed, so he lied. So Rashi holds, you're allowed to lie so as not to be embarrassed. However, the Ramban says, no. Eliezer never switched the story. What Eliezer was saying is, I asked her who she was after having given her the jewelry. The Torah doesn't mean that Eliezer switched the story. The way you have to read it is, I asked her who she was after having given her the jewelry. According to the Ramban, there is no makar in the Chumash. You're allowed to lie to avoid embarrassment. The Chasam Sofer paskins like the Ramban. Chasam Sofer says you're not allowed to lie to avoid embarrassment. So you just have to realize, if you plan on going fishing and not actually fish, and all you're going to do the whole time is chazer over this shiur, just be ready, you're not going to be allowed to lie and say you caught a large tuna, even though you didn't actually go. But what? I'm saying the Chasam Sofer paskins like the Ramban. Okay, let's end off in the following way. Says Rav Moshe, Hine b'medina seinu, in our great country, Meiroiv habracha shenasan Hashem Yisbarach, because of the great blessing that Hashem gave us, Yesh ratzain v'taiva gedoyla lahanas olam hazeh b'chal hatanugim. People have a lot of money, people have a lot of time, and they want to enjoy life, and they want to experience everything that life has to offer. You know what we call this phenomenon, says Rav Moshe? Gimel Vav Dalid Tes Yud Yud Mem. It's something called good time. So what do we have to say about this phenomenon that people want to have in life a good time? Is there an Indian? I want to give my kids a good time. I want my family to have a good time. Says Rav Moshe, it's a major misnomer. The pursuit of good time is davar hamakalkel es ha'adam me'oid. It ruins a person. The quest, the search, the desire for good time ruins a person. Why? Because a person says, look, I have to have a good time. In the summer, I need to go to a place where there's water and I could sit and relax. Okay, but where exactly are you going to go? I'm going to go to the water. But where? What about the fact that there are very few places that you could go without violating Isurim? Are you allowed to keep your eyes open? The Gemara even says to walk near the water where you're going to see things that are improper. Even if you close your eyes, the Gemara says the person's a rasha. Yeah, but I have to go. It's the summer. I have to go to the water. Why do you have to go? Because that's what I'm used to. I'm used to having a good time at all costs. Says Rav Moshe, the pursuit of good time, I don't need to do it. It's mashches midoisav ad shenehepach l'chayara. The desire, the pursuit of good time corrupts a person and brings a person down greatly. Because first the person will try to seek his taiva b'davar heter, and if he cannot fulfill it b'davar heter, he will do it b'davar iser, ad shenase lekoifer. Says Rav Moshe, what is the problem with the Ben Soyer Omeira? What did the kid do? He ate a barbecue. What's wrong with a barbecue? Where does it say in the Torah that you're not to eat a lot at a barbecue? It's what it leads to. It's a lot of food, leads to better times, better times, better times. You know, I already did that. I went there last year. I need something different. Yeah, but this different is not mutter. This different is questionable lahalacha. This different, says Rav Moshe, the pursuit of what he says, the pursuit of good times could lead a person down a very slippery slope. And therefore, Rav Moshe says a very important thing. It's the job of the Rebbe, of the teachers, of the parents, to teach children that Balei Taiva, that people who seek good times, that's not the derech that we try to follow. We should praise to our children those people who get their thrills and their heights, people who get their excitement in life out of Torah u'mitzvahs. That is where a person should look for their thrill. Yes, everybody needs good times. Everybody needs happiness. Everybody needs thrills. Everybody needs a boost. That we should praise to our children those people who get their boost from Torah u'mitzvahs. Not from good time. But what do you mean? I grew up in the Great Depression and I never had a good time in life. I want to give my kids the time that I never had. There is no such concept in Judaism of giving someone a good time. Of course, you want to provide for your children. You want to provide them happiness. You want to provide them excitement. But says Rav Moshe a very interesting thing. You know, if you look in Parshas B'chukaisai, the Torah tells us about all the benefits that will accrue to a person if they follow the Torah. And the Torah tells us you're going to have a lot of food, and you're going to have a lot of v'nasati gishmechem be'itam, v'nas naharat zivula, ve'es hasada yitain piryai. And then it says, va'achaltem lachmechem losoiva. Listen to what's going on. First it says you're going to have a lot of food, and then it says, and the biggest bracha of all is, you'll be satisfied with a little bit. What do I need to be satisfied with a little bit if I have a lot? Says Rav Moshe, the Torah is teaching you that even if you live in America where you have a lot, you have a lot of time, and you'll have a lot of money, you should still teach yourself and teach your family to be satisfied with a little bit. Don't think that just because Hashem gave a person a lot of money and resources, it's to use and expend on the exciting thrill. No, it's not. Don't take it as a siman min hashamayim, says Rav Moshe. He says in the end, v'hula hayros, shegam kishanois in HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'medina bracha meruba v'ashiros gadoila lo yavoi mizeh. Don't take from there. Ladon sharatzen Hashem Yisbarach sheyishtadel lahasig kol hanois sheyuchal ayidei habracha. Hashem did not give us our money and time to be able to use it on every possible benefit. Ela yeda the b'chol eis v'chol makom yeh hanaosav rak mitayro umasim tayim. It says Rav Moshe, the proper derech in life is for a person to have the discipline to try to get their kicks and to try to get their thrills from Torah and mitzvahs, not from doing things. And that's a very important direction that we could all learn from in our day and age. So, Rabbi Sai, I hope everyone has fun planning their hunting trips and planning their fishing trips. And Be'ezus Hashem, don't forget to take these sheets with you. Have a great day. Shkaya.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.